Welcome back, beautiful people of the podcasting universe and world. Three Amigos podcast, 3 for 3. Myself, Anthony Ola, Christopher Langsdorff. We are here to talk about Palworld, Palmon, not the Digimon. Palworld is the newest, biggest gaming sensation at the moment. Controversial for some, for others. It's just fair game, bitches. Suck it, Nintendo. Suck these fucking nuts. Damn, I'm going wild right now. But yeah, this is a game that I've played. And you tried it out. I put in like a good hour and a half into it, maybe two. Uh, I played it on cloud. Basically a free game if you have Game Pass. For those of you who don't know, Palmon is based Palmon Power World.
Oh, there it is.
I know. Power
There it is.
World is essentially Pokemon with guns. You might have seen that viral trend. You might have even seen the trailers before this game ever came out. You might have not even heard of it until you started seeing all the commotion of essentially and literally can't say I gotta choose the words wisely. Can't really say certain things, but basically forcing your Pokemons into labor, mining, getting supplies and stuff for yourself to create and level up. You level up with said mons. You can capture these mons to be your loyal friends.
Yeah,
Uh,
your pals.
your pals, exactly.
Capture the
Pal,
pals to be your pal.
yeah, the issue at hand is like, well, when you say capture, how do you capture? Well, you use some spheres, and the sphere is round. If you know
Interesting.
your shapes, and if you pass geometry class, you know that circular. That might involve something similar to another game, very popular game that's been around for almost 30 years, called Pokemon.
Hmm.
But Pokemon sucks. It's graphically inferior. It's on a weak system. If you ask the loyal purist Nintendo person,
Yeah, man. Have you
um,
seen the trees? I mean,
fucking trees. Have you
I gotta talk about
seen
the trees.
Breath of the Wild? Tears of the Kingdom. They have the potential, but they refuse. Anyways, look, all seriousness, like this is a game that's meant to be for someone who wanted maybe a more edgier, maybe more uh impactful open world of what Pokemon could be. Someone said challenge accepted, let me do that. Except they said fuck it, let me just give everybody guns. And yes, I haven't built a gun yet, but I've made some weapons, stuff to craft. It's basically Minecraft with monsters, uh, capturing and leveling. There's raids. It has a lot, and it has a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential for it to be legal trouble because would be local law issues because the company who made this game is out of Japan. Nintendo is a Japanese company, and the Pokemon company is also a Japanese company. So both can pretty much team up to say, well, this company, which I forget the name of it, uh, needs to be punished or just be sued out the water. And that's what everyone's stating and saying that this company deserves to be sued. They're sending death threats to the developers for this game because of reasons. Look, if you haven't tried the game, I do encourage you to try the game. And you've tried the game, we're gonna talk about it. Chris, I do want to take my attention to you because you don't have an Xbox and you don't have a gaming PC. You could probably try it on your Mac if you want to. Um, but as an outsider looking in who hasn't tried the game and who maybe like just raise an eyebrow to the trailers that came out a couple
Hmm.
years ago, or just the mere thought of it coming out and the idea floating around the interwebs and now seeing it come to fruition, what is your take on Palworld?
Uh, I don't know. Doesn't interest me at all.
Why is that? You like Pokemon, you
Um,
play Pokemon.
I'm a Pokemon fan. It's not Pokemon.
It's
I
similar to
don't
Pokemon.
rip-off games don't interest me. Um, they just don't. Not ones that are like so clearly uh in some instances just straight up plagiarizing from other game. This company also, by the way, they made a Breath of the Wild ripoff.
Mm.
They've also made a bunch of like other ripoffs. Like so that for a long time they've been trying to like hit it big by just copying other
Hmm.
companies' ideas. Um, but the popular thing right now, Kind of like with popular to shit on Marvel, it's like become very popular to shit on Pokemon.
Yeah.
So I think also there's something about like I could maybe get behind the idea of like Ratchet and Clank style guns, like goofy, silly guns,
Mm-hmm.
because the art style for the Palworld game, at least from what I've seen, is like kind of goofy and silly. It's not Monster Hunter. It's not these don't look like intimidating creatures or even dauntless. Like these
Mm-hmm.
they just look fluffy and friendly. I'm sure, there's a few that are probably a little bit more intimidating looking, but a lot of the ones that I've seen just look kind of goofy and not the kind of things that you want to pull out a 9mm and shoot them in the face over and over. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's something's clashing with like to me the art style of the game really clashes with like the realism of the weapons they're giving you.
Mm-hmm.
Because the game's characters are so goofy
Mm-hmm.
that like having a rocket launcher just doesn't fit. I don't know. Yeah, I think also I don't know. I'm not really into survival games. Like for, the company themselves, because I went on their Twitter out of curiosity. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
is this people on the outside saying Pokemon with guns, which is like Pokemon was created around a, TV show with a 10-year-old protagonist. So like when was it ever going to get to that point
Mm-hmm.
of like being adult themed? Like they purposely kept the character 10 years old. Um, but I went on their Twitter and they also have leaned into the Pokemon marketing. So they know what they're doing. Like they know that without the meme of Pokemon with guns, there's probably not that many people care about this game. Like on the Steam store, Epic store, whatever, I'm sure there are countless games that look like this or that have similar ideas, and they just don't have the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is a lesson in marketing of just hitch your wagon to, the most popular media franchise in the history of the world, and you'll do some numbers. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm also like very skeptical of like the shelf life of a game like this. Like once people get over the meme of like Pokemon with guns, like Nintendo's fucking lazy, like hopefully they open their eyes
Mm-hmm.
of like because I think I'm also stuck between, and we talked about this briefly like in the chat, of like when people complain about, something, you're like, this company's lazy, they're not inspired anymore. And now they're given an alternative. And instead of being like, this is fun, they're turning around and being like, yeah, fuck Pokemon. Like this is what Pokemon should be doing. It's like you have the alternative. What do you mean? Like
Yeah.
is this not what you want? Do you actually want to shoot Pikachu in the face? Like, is that the point of Pokemon to you? So to me, I don't know. It feels like part of it is like not really genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of like just it's cool to hate on Pokemon. The games ran like shit for a lot of people. Uh, I don't know. Pokemon's just become one of those things where it's like you get too big and it becomes cool to shit on you, which I get. But the Pal World stuff just hasn't. I don't know. It's
Hmm.
not clicking for me. It looks kind of lame. It's cool that people are enjoying it, but yeah, not for me, which is fine. You
Yeah,
know.
that's fine. But you're also wrong. You will always be wrong, Christopher.
You know what it is? It's like you can enjoy something without simultaneously putting down something else that other people like. Which is it's like it's one of the aspects of the Pal World discourse that I think really bothers me
Mm-hmm.
is like people like Pokemon. Like I understand that a vocal minority of people have created this idea that Pokemon sucks, which is just not the majority of people's opinions. So the majority of people love Pokemon. That's why they're the biggest media franchise in the world.
Right.
So I don't know. It's like if you're enjoying Pal World, great. Enjoy Pal World. You don't have to also be like Pokemon sucks. It that to me that's just weird. Like what? Just enjoy the shit that you're having fun with,
Yeah.
and like have a good time.
I
It's
still, I like what people said though. Like it's, and I think Charlie, Penguin Zero mentioned it's good to highlight though, like how Pokemon lacks, um, you know, like I guess the imagination. It's always had the imagination. It has always the capability, but I feel like they could always push the narrative further. They are the creators of this, in terms of the Pokemon Company, and Nintendo are the ones pretty much backing it. Like they could always create something bigger and better. Um, does it take time? Absolutely. I just feel like, and I've been critical of it, especially with like the voice acting, like just bring it in, put it in. There's no reason like I get there is a reason, but I feel like it's not a good enough reason to not have it. And um that's my viewpoint. And that's my that's a hill I'll die on. Like, fighting. It's like they should have voice acting. And I think this game reopens up that conversation of like what could they do better? And I think and that's a fair criticism still because it's in the genre of like, uh, of of an RPG, I guess, because Pokemon kind of fits that narrative of an RPG and storytelling. Um, does Pokemon still tell better stories in Palworld? Probably because the story right now is like it's zero story. You just kind of wake up and ta-da, I'm partially naked. Let me
You're in a
capture stuff.
caveman outfit.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's a good conversation starter and a good way to like kind of like say, look, this company that came out of nowhere is kind of doing a pretty fine job of attracting attention and creating something that a company that's been around for decades, for years, isn't kind of doing. Um, and they could. They very well probably could. They have the money for it. It's just we don't know why. It's holding what's putting them back. So it's cool. I like this competition. I don't like the death threats and I don't like the shitting on Nintendo. I mean, it is a meme thing to shit on Nintendo, especially in their consoles, because like they like re-releasing things at 720 and calling it HD when HD has already passed its limits, and where there are things that are 8K now, which is also a gimmick. So it's just it's funny and it's fair criticism too, and it's fair game. Um, and what do you think of the game so far?
I have quite a bit to say.
Sure.
Um, I want to quickly touch on I think I'm in the group of people who think like, oh, this is what Pokemon could be. They need to like step their game up and take note. I
Mhm.
think that in the perspective of, this is a game about evolving and they're not really evolving at a pace that
Mhm.
matches the technology, right?
Sure.
Like Frankie, you want voice acting. At this point, I could take it or leave it with voice acting, but I see why it would be great to have it. Um, Scarlet and Violet, I could not, be locked into that game because of the performance and the visuals, which is why I primarily stuck with God of War Ragnarok that month that it released because it was just a, better looking performing game, which obviously, right,
Mhm.
PS5 versus Nintendo. But with Power World, number one, I understand it's an early build. It's only 60% done according to the developers. There's still another
Mhm.
40%. I found it boring. It was putting me to sleep. I put in closer to 3 to 4 hours of gameplay total,
Well,
and I had a hard time staying awake throughout most of it. But I have seen some things in the game that I'm like, can I reach that point in the game? As well
yeah.
as, is there differences between the Steam version and the Xbox version?
Sure.
Um, and then. Um, One of the points I wanted to bring in terms of like what they are doing that's really cool, or it's something you can see that's cool that Pokemon may never do for like probably not for another 10 or 20 years. But there was a video from Game Ranks where they had like their base built, and
Uh-huh.
they put one of the fire pals at the base, and because it was
Mhm.
a fire pal, it burned down the base,
Yep.
and so you have to keep the your fire pal away from the base. That's really cool. Um,
Mhm.
the whole thing about the guns and all that. I I understand people want to bitch about it, but just shut the fuck up. It's like it's a game, like whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt bad in one of the things I was doing because I had a wooden club
Yeah.
and a sheep pal,
Yeah.
and you can use your imagination. And I felt
Mhm.
bad, and I was like, I'm gonna play something else because I just felt bad for the sheep. But the survival aspect of it, I didn't really like because my character was constantly hungry. Um,
You could
I
oh,
mean,
so the one thing too is like you can change all that. Like you can turn that off, which
oh,
is
I
I
didn't know
thought
that.
really cool. You can turn that off. You can make the daytimes longer.
Oh,
You can put things essentially that where you don't die and lose your stuff. Um, there's a lot that you could do.
so like
Also
bitch mode.
essentially like not it's like you can put it to the point where like it's fair. You know, they leave it at a way that, you know, it is challenging. So essentially you complaining that you're always hungry, it means that you're a bitch and you don't know how to play the fucking game. And you suck at it. I'm just kidding. The other difference is that I just want to note between me and you, Ant, is like I played with three other people too. So that made it more fun.
yeah.
This might be a game where you like it's like where I've never played Borderlands, but I heard you will not like Borderlands if you don't play with other people. So like
Because I
that,
hated Borderlands and I played solo.
you know, so like I could see that being a game where like you don't want to play solo, whereas Pokemon, that's a game you could play. Well,
So
you've never had the option of playing with other people. You could only play by yourself. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's meant for you only.
actually a quick question before I continue with a
Sure.
piece.
Sure.
When you play with friends, right?
Hmm.
How does it work for capturing? You just whoever catches it catches it.
Yeah. And then you can see everyone doing work. You can have all your Pokemon out.
All your what?
Excuse me, all your pal out. Sorry.
Because
They're gonna use this podcast against Palworld. Look,
I used
look,
They're gonna play
Answer's
this in
being
the
confused.
courtroom.
Exactly.
Because I was playing and like I found like a sleeping Firefox thing and
I
I tried
caught
to
that.
capture it and it woke up and it started like attacking me and it was too strong for me. So I started running away and it kept chasing me down the hills, just trying to burn my ass. And then I either teleported away because I almost died or it
Uh-huh.
actually killed me. I can't remember because I died a lot in that game so far. But I was upset that I couldn't capture it, but I was like, okay, this is, a bit more excitement. But then again, I
Uh-huh.
heard there is, some towns you could find, they're still kind of lifeless and everything, but
Mm-hmm.
I think right now in the game's current state, I'm not gonna like it. But I think when they put the remaining time, assuming they don't get shut down because everyone is, fucking haters and bitching, but
Mm-hmm.
they can put the time into finishing it, especially with the money they're getting, and they actually get a good story and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'll, keep my Game Pass active and play it. But when Chris mentioned earlier about what did you call it? Like video game like rip-offs or whatever you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned. I see that point of view as well because you can make the best game that's like Pokemon, but if it's not Pokemon, I really wouldn't really play it as much as I would play Pokemon. Just
Sure.
like this may transition or not, you can make the best skateboarding game of all time. I still rather play Tony Hawk than the other
Mhm.
skateboarding game. That's just
Mm-hmm.
my personal taste. So
Sure.
I really hate that Scarlet and Violet let me down, and I see how much fun Chris has with it, and I wish I could have that much fun with it. But I think if someone said to me, "You could play Power World, you know, for next coming years, or you can play another Pokemon game," I'm gonna play Pokemon over Power World, like simply, that's I think that's most
Mm-hmm.
people as well. But you have to agree they have the Unreal Engine, they're doing the better, you know, visuals, the exploration, because it's more open,
Mm-hmm.
space, the mechanics, the what's the word, the physics.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I like about it.
I want to say too, I played, I don't know, did you download it or did you play on cloud?
I downloaded it.
I played on cloud, and that, besides the audio sounding really shitty, like the game played perfectly fine. It played really well.
I
I
had
was
a
very surprised about that.
I had a couple of minor bugs, but that's any game.
Yeah,
But the
absolutely.
game, my only problem with the sound is I think, and it's just been my experience with every Xbox I've had. Even whether I'm using, when I'm using headphones with my controller, the sound has always been the worst compared to PlayStation with the headphone quality because
Yeah,
the
I've never
connection is
had any
shitty.
issue. I've never
Um,
had that issue.
I've always
Um,
had an issue.
I mean, I also play with the settings too a little bit, so like I've never
Yeah.
had that issue.
Like
I don't know what
it
to tell
cuts
you.
out for me for everything I play. But the game ran. And there was some cool shit. Like you remember, the first campsite you see, there's like the girl who's like wounded.
Hmm.
This is actually kind of funny because she told me how like she's like, one of the few survivors and she was injured. So I, attacked her. And then a bunch of random guys from her team started attacking me and I was wanted. And I was like, where the fuck you guys spawned from? She said there was like, oh, most of you guys are dead and she buried a lot of you guys. Like you have a whole arsenal. What the fuck you talking about?
That's funny. That's
But
pretty funny.
I'm trying to it's a grind, because my current challenges is catch 30 pals, level up your base to 7, challenge the boss, and I'm like, well, how do I get clothes? How do I get guns? Um and I'm constantly having to get these items, crafting pickaxes for stone,
Mhm.
crafting an axe for trees, which craft the axe for the trees, that shit is quick. You get wood,
Yeah.
quick.
You
But
get wood
I
quick.
don't want to do this for hours and hours. It's like the Starfield thing. I don't want to play for X number of hours before it gets good, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it depends, I guess, on like for us, like it was pretty fun just playing and messing around with
Like
just friends.
if you're like me and you can't sleep at night, play Palworld or Starfield and it will put you to sleep. It's the
I
cure for
guess so.
insomnia. At least
I
for me
guess
it
so.
is. That helps me go to sleep at night.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be into,
Hmm.
survival games. That's basically what it is.
You know what it is? It's
Yeah,
missing Vin Diesel. That's what it is.
I guess so.
Because he's doing the new arc. So
To
Uh,
me, the game it resembles more of the Breath of the Wild style of like when someone, I mean, just like I have a lot of like complaints about just like game UI in general.
mhm.
The Palworld UI is awful. It's so much. There's so many fucking items. Um, but it resembled a lot more of like Breath of the Wild, just in terms of your inventory, all of the different
hmm
things that you
Mhm.
have access to.
I agree because there's like the hot and cold meter.
Also, you
Um,
could turn that off, but yeah.
And then I know, like in the beginning, if you want to call it a story, there was kind of like a Pokemon Arceus, thing because you like I guess fall out of the sky and you
Hmm.
wake up and there's pals looking at you and there's it reminded me of Arceus and even like the exploration reminds me a bit of Arceus as well and the fact that the pals can attack you like in Arceus. So that part for me was like okay that it made me feel a little bit at home, but it also goes back to it's not Pokemon. I want to play Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because you're always competing against the longevity and like the history of,
Hmm.
just everyone knows Charizard. Like,
Yeah.
will anyone remember the name of 10 of the
I
pals from
don't
Pal
know the name
World
of any of
50
my
years from
pals.
now?
I have a
Yeah.
chicken, a cat, a sheep, and a penguin.
I've seen so many people like naming their pals Pokemon names. Somebody did a really interesting comparison online where
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
they found out that the company literally did, I guess, borderline steal the exact designs and dimensions of certain Pokemon and just reskin them. So that might get them in a little bit of trouble, which again is like, I think what's kind of annoying is like, why don't you just come up with your own original monsters?
You know what?
Yeah.
I
Like,
heard an excuse for that. A really bad excuse for that. They said it helps with animation for the pals. That by
Um,
using the dimensions of it, it helps with their own animations.
I mean, they
I'll
didn't
bet.
change it all too much either. Like you're supposed to use a base and then
Hmm.
create something different. So yeah,
Right.
I get what you mean.
Because I've
And
also
yeah.
seen like a quote unquote clone of like Decidueye, Lucario,
Yeah.
a
There's a
few
pretty bad
others.
one of Cobalion.
Hmm.
But no, quite literally somebody took the Pokemon Luxray and slid a PAL over so that they were overlapping.
Hmm.
And they quite literally did copy Luxray exactly.
Wow.
Um,
Which to me it's just kind of lame because I don't know. Again, this isn't like a Pal World versus Pokemon thing because I don't think it's a competition.
yeah.
Um, I don't see how it possibly could be when one company is like the most famous media company of all time
The
and the
most
other one
dominant.
just existed.
Yeah.
Highest
Um,
IP ever created.
but it's just like there's so much that goes on with Pokemon. It's not just the games. There's so much that goes into designing the world of Pokemon, all the iconic Pokemon over the
Hmm.
years that everyone loves. And I think with a game like Palworld, you kind of see how hard that is
Yeah.
because they've taken inspiration from so many Pokemon that it's not as easy as just inventing new ones
Hmm.
that don't resemble other ones. But again, part of that is probably on purpose because if you do want your game to take off, you want people to compare it to Pokemon because
Right.
everyone knows Pokemon. Even if you have little to no knowledge of like, Pokemon like we do, like, bigger fans of it, uh, people know Pikachu. People know Charizard. Like if, just hitching your wagon for marketing purposes to that company is really, really smart. So, But if they do get in any sort of trouble, I would imagine they just patch them out. Just I don't know,
It
Yeah,
reminds me because I
come up
caught
with some other design.
something. I caught a pal that looks like an albino Eevee,
yeah, I got one too.
and yeah, it's I don't know. It's hard. I think it's hard for like I understand it's hard to come up with your own designs,
Mm-hmm.
especially with Pokemon did it for like 30 years, and then there's all these different other franchises that have their own designs, like Yu-Gi-Oh and
Digimon,
Bakugan, Digimon,
Mm-hmm.
and all that shit.
yeah.
But it um it kind of reminds me of the whole Genshin Impact thing, where like that I think that originally was a Breath of the Wild clone, and then they changed quite a bit of it. Um,
Mm,
and I think the other problem with it for me is, although it's technically not free to play, it feels like a free to
Mm-hmm.
play game. And for some reason, I can't stick with a free to play game. I don't know what it is. I just can't play free to play games. Like,
I don't know. They all
I
look
don't
kind
know.
of the same.
Like, surprisingly, I played that one game of Dauntless with you guys, and I'm interested in playing another match. But um, I don't know what it is. I think it's the fact of like, I know that it's free-ish, quote unquote, and so I know what I'm getting out of it. Whereas if I pay for certain games, I know like it might be worth the money. It's a
Okay.
weird mindset that I have. I don't know what it is. I just can't stick to these free-to-play games. And yes, you got to pay for a subscription to Game Pass or pay $30. But like I said, I'm excited to see what they do with the remaining 40% of game completion, as well as what they can add after it. But hopefully Pokemon's future is, especially with the new Switch coming out or whatever they're gonna call it. Hopefully Pokemon's future is bigger and prettier.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a big thing with Palworld is the graphics, is that
Mhm.
it looks more aesthetically pleasing than Pokemon. I would definitely question how many people who are drawing these like it's better than Pokemon, Nintendo needs to step it up. Like I would question how recently they've been playing the Pokemon games. Because I don't know, the Pokemon games have never looked good. So
All right.
to me, that's just always been a weird, like I get it. We want good graphics. Everybody who says gameplay over graphics is obviously full of shit. Because as soon as a nice looking game comes along, they're like, "Oh my God, it looks so good." Whenever a game that doesn't look good comes along, they're like, "This game looks like shit." So like, but then like afterwards, it's like, well, gameplay over graphics, right? And it's like that's obviously a lie. You don't actually care.
King Kong.
Yeah, I don't know. It just maybe Pokemon looks better in the future. I don't play Pokemon for the graphics. I never did. If I cared about the graphics of Pokemon, I never would have played the games in the first place.
Fair.
So I think, voice acting, yeah, given how in-depth their stories are starting to get, they should probably invest in some voice actors. I would be worried that they wouldn't get good voice actors because that can also ruin a game.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask some of the people who
Like
voiced Mortal Kombat characters.
and Princess Zelda's voice actor for the recent games.
Yeah, well, they only have like three cutscenes in the whole game anyway. But maybe it looks better on the new Switch. But again, it's the Switch. It's always gonna be this. It's always gonna be Nintendo. They're always gonna
Mm-hmm.
be 10 years behind everyone else. It's good for the development of Palworld that they're really making the game for PC, which is really capable and powerful. And hopefully, everybody that's enjoying it right now continues to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't see any reason why, you know, everything can't coexist. I don't, to me, it's weird. It's like, you could play both. You like Pal World, you can still like Pokemon. They're
Yeah.
not mutually exclusive.
Right.
Um, so I don't know. I get it. It's a nice. That's the popular thing to shit on Pokemon and say they're not innovative and whatever. They're lacking in this and that. Um, I always push back a little bit because it just, to me, doesn't seem genuine or accurate if you've played the recent games. Because if we're going to talk about performance, I mean, there's a fucking laundry list of games you could shit on for performance on the Switch. Most of them are cloud games because they can't even get them to act. They don't. The companies don't even want to make a Switch version. So I don't know. I don't really align too much with the Pokemon bashing because I still think the games are fun. Maybe I am a gameplay over graphics kind of guy. But you know, it's cool that Palworld is doing well. You guys think you'll keep playing?
No,
Probably with friends because I think I'd be very bored
I
too
don't.
by myself.
I don't
So we'll
have any
see.
friends, so no.
Mm.
No, I won't be playing it. Especially because I have so many things I got to complete for my channel and get ready for it for my channel. But after what I've played so far, probably every once in a while to try to progress. But I'm not like rushing to play it every day after work. Um, unless until I wait for the actual full release, which it could be this year, it could be next year, who knows? But
Who
yeah.
knows?
Yeah, I always wonder like, because this went super viral, and then I wonder if it's almost detrimental in the long run to the company that they asked like the point in time that their game went viral was before it was actually done. So like, because you know people move on really quickly these days. Like, I just wonder if, like you said, if it takes another 6 months or another year or another 2 years, is anyone going to give a shit by then? Like, are people still going to be playing the beta of Palworld, like eagerly awaiting the full release, whatever that looks like? You'd like to assume your progress would carry over. They wouldn't just, wipe you and be like, oh, you got to start a brand new Palworld game.
Right.
But given how many games come out these days and how frequently games come out, uh, and if Palworld it wants to really hitch on to Pokemon, then they're gonna have to try to avoid Pokemon's release windows, which have become a little less predictable over the
Yeah.
last couple of years, with Arceus and Gen
Mhm.
9. But yeah, I genuinely am curious, like, 3, 6 months from now, because you know what it was? It kind of reminded me of was that like DC Smash Bros. Clone that they made? Another like,
Multiverses.
yeah, kind of rip-off game
Yeah.
that everybody was hyped about, and
Mhm.
then the
Oof.
beta was like
Oh.
doing crazy numbers and everybody was into it, and then people stopped caring. Um, so yeah, I'm kind of curious. Like they sold a bunch of copies, which to me it's weird selling a beta version of a
Mhm.
game. That seems like it shouldn't be allowed, just for like consumer protection. But I guess if people want to throw their money behind something that's not finished, that's their, they can do that. But yeah, I guess we'll see in a few months if when the full version is out, is if anyone still cares.
And
Yeah, I'll probably give it a shot.
since we've been talking a lot about Pokemon, I've been watching a lot of Did You Know Gaming on YouTube.
Hmm.
Want to hit you with a little quick Pokemon fun
All
fact,
right,
I
that's it.
guess.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Yeah. But I think in like the old school Japanese Pokemon games, if a character gave you a golden nugget, it was basically, for lack of a better term, slang of someone handing you old man testicles. So, little fun fact for you guys: in Pokemon, you get
All
old
right.
man testicles you can sell for $10,000. So,
They
Can
can't
someone
do
cut
that in
that?
Pal World.
Can someone
No
cut
old
this?
man
Someone
nuts in
cut
Pal
this.
World.
Someone cut this. Uh, I guess my last 2 cents for this is that I hope the game does well. I like when things are just done to be done and to like generate a conversation. I don't think this game was meant to start, meant specifically to start controversy. I think this game was made for people who wanted to try something different or something similar to what they grew up playing. I just think yes, the adding the guns is kind of outrageous. I wish it was
yeah.
something maybe just weapons would be fine, like a spear or a sword and a shield would be cool. Well, sword and shield, that's a great title for a fucking Pokemon game. Um,
Well, better
you
than
know,
Avowed.
um, so I'm just like I hope this game, continues the hype, and it'd be it'd be just a great shocker to the gaming world. Like hey, you can make a game and kind of get away with like slight plagiarism or slight copying. They don't have fair use in Japan. It's a very strictly kind of like a US thing. No, it is a US thing. So it'd be interesting to see what's gonna happen. Maybe they can work something out. But Nintendo and Pokemon don't play nice, so with other people, you get sued or like you demonetized if you even touch or do anything related to like their IPs. So, but maybe something can be worked around that. Like this can survive. I'm not holding my breath. I wasn't overly excited for this game, but it was a pleasant surprise. I'm like, wow, has a lot of like mechanics to it. It's very intricate. It's not a simple like scroll and play game. It's not a simple like survival game. There is like a slight strategy to it. There is uh, a formula, if you say, and
Hmm.
and there's a and that's and you know if that and the formula kind of throws you off. Well, there's formulas for a lot of games. First person shooters, you duck, you dive, you hide, you shoot, you survive. Uh,
Yeah.
MMOs, you get your level or you pay to get higher gear and you survive and play with whatever team you might or friends you make along the way to survive. Venture games, you pretty much beat bosses until you get to the final. There is always a formula for this stuff. So I hope the formula is good enough to keep it alive for who knows how long. But that's all we have for today. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, beautiful people of the podcasting universe and world. We'll catch you on the next one.